Hey, everybody. I hope you're doing well. I want to welcome you to the Weathered Athlete Podcast, a place to honor those athletes that refuse to go quietly in the night. So how did we get here? It's amazing. So I've entered aid station number 1, which means I have now covered 10 miles. And I can't believe it's come this far. And so, some of you know the story, but most of you don't. So I want to just take a few minutes here and kind of just summarize where I've been. This journey, if I think about it, started about a year ago. It would be a year tomorrow that I completed Ironman Chattanooga. I was fortunate enough to have Walt Maxwell, who's on the panel here, and another friend, Joe Matthews, and I. Basically, we went into Ironman Chattanooga together, raised about $20,000. Honestly, finishing that event, it was my first Ironman. I did it to celebrate age 50, and I was on top of the world. The problem is, once you kind of complete an event like that, it's kind of life-changing. Come out of that, and it was kind of looking for direction. What do I do now? I had 2 events set up in the spring, thinking, okay, I'll start to train for them. And then unfortunately, COVID hit. So I went on probably a 4 to 6 week bender on Netflix and Amazon Prime, where all I did was watch shows. And honestly, I was so unfulfilled. It was definitely not the highlight of my past year. But luckily, Mike Studer, who's on this call, had asked me to be part of a week-long webinar on the aging athlete. So I had pretty much all winter long, I've been doing some research, but anybody who knows me, I'm a social creature. I can't sit there and look at research articles, and it basically, I'd much rather hear it, see it, feel it. So trying to think, okay, how can I get myself back on track? So we get to July 1st. I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I'm thinking, what am I going to do? So I think, let me just reach out to Charlie Plascon. He is a 77-year-old visually impaired triathlete that Joe and I had met up with during the run portion of Ironman Chattanooga. And I'm like, I wonder if he'd be willing to talk to me. So I sent him an email, and to Charlie's credit, he reached back out to me and called me the next day. Had a great conversation with him. And the thing is, when I got off the phone with him, I'm like, oh, now what? How am I going to kind of harness this, and how am I going to get this information out there, at least to share with other people, because it's too good to have for myself. So I'm a podcast guy, so I'm thinking, hey, I'll start a podcast. How difficult can that be? Boy, I started researching podcast platforms, and for anybody who's taken a look at them, there's so many. I basically just searched them all and then settled on Podbean, and then kind of figured out, what am I going to do as far as a name? So I don't like aging. I don't like geriatric. I hated elderly. So I'm thinking weathered. I did basically a word association, came up with weathering. Weathering, we were all weathering one day at a time, and it takes that weathering that provides the character and resilience to take on the next day. So published the first episode, or first promo, on July 8th, created a website on July 11th, and then was lucky enough to talk Walt Maxwell into being my first interview on July 12th. Had another friend of mine, Beth, who I talked into doing an interview as well. And honestly, Beth, and you've been holding on, I promise your episode will be this week. She's been patient, and I want to try to get her as big of an audience as I can. So July 18th, we published our first mile. Actually done 14 interviews at this point, and published 10 episodes. Pretty amazing. So July 30th, actually, we inspired our first athlete. This is Lily, our 18-pound, 13-year-old calico cat. She is the official mascot of the Weathered Athlete Podcast. She has never done this before. Lily really doesn't do much of anything. Sitting on the couch, she climbed up there, and I could tell right from the beginning she was going to take on couch jumping. My wife is in the background screaming, "Don't let her do it. She's going to hurt herself." So I did what any physical therapist and proud papa does. I pulled out my phone and I sat there and I kind of watched her and saw what she was going to do. And here we go. And bam, she nails it. So she ended up having a little bit of a limp after that, but I'm going to blame the dogs. I think she was thrilled, and she's walking around all proud. You know, she harnessed her inner kitty. So she is our first inspired athlete and our official mascot. As I was kind of summarizing, kind of thinking about where I've been, two quotes hit me. The first is, the difference between impossible and possible lies in a person's determination. For those of you that have listened to any of these episodes, that is one trend that I think you'll find with all these people, is they are determined. Nothing gets in their way. And then the other thing is, my comfort zone is like a little bubble around me. I've pushed it in different directions and made it bigger and bigger until these objectives that seem totally crazy eventually fall within the realm of possible. That's Alex Honnold. Now, no one in these 10 miles has climbed El Capitan, but I think it's a great lesson for all of us of how some people started, is you just got to keep pushing things a little bit farther. One step leads to another step. Kind of like me doing this podcast and now doing a live stream. I would have never expected I'd be at this point to where I'm doing all this. So I thank everybody for being a part of this. And what we're going to do is I'm going to cut away here in a minute to our live stream panel. And I greatly appreciate that. So thank you very much, everybody. Here we go. Are you there?
Here.
Hey.
Right there.
Actually, did the video come through?
Did not see the cat video.
Oh, did you see any of the other stuff?
No.
Yep. Oh, well, so I'll publish that online. So there's our first glitch of the night.
It's okay.
So, anybody watching, we have Walt Maxwell. I have Becca George, Carl Cook, Dr. Dick Rosen, and Mike Studer.
I'm here. You can't see me,
doing?
but I'm here.
Okay. How's everybody doing today?
Good.
Fine.
Okay.
Doing great.
So I apologize that again. You can only do so much at once. So yeah. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna open the floor. Does anybody have anything you want to say about being part of this?
I'll start not hearing anybody else, and I'm just going to say I feel like I've already learned more than I've given. Appreciative to be part of the journey so far at mile number 9, and I can see why you needed to take a rest break after ours to hit the first aid station. But I'm just thankful for what I've learned already by so many great stories. So thank you, Pete.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
I love the name Weathered Athlete. I think it's hard to say I'm a senior athlete or I'm an aging athlete or find the right thing. And I think just from doing research with athletes, once you get into it, nobody really cares what you're called once you're doing it, because it feels so good. But yeah, cool name, and it's fun to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Pete, and congratulations. Yeah, 10 miles, and I'm really impressed with your dedication and focus and all of the resources, time, and et cetera that you put into this, and well deserved, and congratulations.
Thanks a lot. So if nobody has anything else to say, I'm going to kind of open the floor. I want to start off with goal setting. I'm just curious to see if there's anybody on the panel, how do you, if you're willing to speak about setting goals, do you do day goals? Do you do weekly, yearly? What kind of things do you do? And that's open to anybody. So
Well, I basically just have weekly goals, but my main goal is, and I've told my friends this, our goal is going to be set the world record for a 90-year-old relay team. That way it keeps it in perspective. You know, I'm running for life here, not just for what's coming up in the next few months, but I do that too. But anyway, I'm gonna get, I really mean to do that when I'm not, if not when I'm 90, I'll get the remaining friends together.
Well, it's funny that Mike and I joke that, you know, he's the pickleball champ. I said I'm going to tag team on his fame here in another 20 years or 30 years. We're going to be on that pickleball court as doubles.
Yeah, that would be a good goal too, and I like the long-term nature of that. That's great. Myself, since you pulled me in there, I'll actually state that I will occasionally set goals that are life milestone goals. I want to, you know, complete the Boston Marathon again when I'm 50. So I set a goal for qualifying that and arranged some marathon training as such. Sometimes I'll actually end up doing destination events as well. We want to take a trip here, so I'm going to train for that so I can do well at this. So typically, I could summarize succinctly to say that most of my training-based goals are organized around signing up for an event, which I think we can all pretty well identify with right now. We're either the type of person that's going to do a virtual event, or we're waiting for our next opportunity to do a true live mass start, large in-person event. And then accordingly, we can train by what the event commands of us and what our time goals are, whether we're going to try to, you know, place or beat our own previous time. So that's kind of my approach.
Okay. Dr. Rosen, do you set up goals as far as, you know, things you're going to do during the week? If you can hear me.
Thanks, Pete, for asking me. I enjoyed listening to our interview, or your interview with me, and I learned for the first time how slowly I talk. It hasn't made me try and talk faster, but it's interesting. I never knew that until I played back on the interview. It varies. My goal today was to complete the virtual competition for the North Carolina Senior Games in the event of the 10K. I'm the only person in my age group, so it really didn't matter what my time was. I couldn't use your course because it's broken up by the construction in Country Park and the Guilford Military Park, but I ran 25 laps in a local track at Kernodle Middle School, and it's 17 minutes slower than last year, which is a huge drop-off, but I'm pretty relaxed about how huge drops occur at my age. As Pete knows, I'm only able to run about 40 strides now, and I get too short of breath to keep running. So when I talk about a 10K on a track, I run the start of the straightaway in each direction and then walk to the next start of the straightaway. But it varies. This goal happened today largely because I didn't get to do any running or walking yesterday because of scheduling. But certainly when I was running marathons, which I did over a 3-year period, I ran 7 of them, and they were like every 6 months, and they were well-defined goals with long runs, particularly in the last 8 weeks before the marathon. But the last one I ran was 1979. I ran a bunch of half marathons until the 2010s, but not any recently. I began running at age 42 on a happenstance, but since I've been running, I've never had more than a day or two where I didn't want to get out there and do something. I never did anything as ambitious as a triathlon. I've never really ridden a bike, and I would think that I'd be in great danger of falling if I tried to go as fast as I could downhill. I mean, that's out of the question. And I swam this summer briefly. I had heel pain and I couldn't walk or run at all. And so for the month of July, I was just swimming. I hate swimming, but it beats being sedentary. I can ramble for a long time, but my goal setting, it's entirely variable. I don't actually plan on long-term goals now. I was disappointed by COVID because I thought that I might qualify and go to nationals. The next nationals are still scheduled for November 2021 in Fort Lauderdale, and that would probably be a bad away game for me because there's hundreds of elderly people in Florida that don't have to travel very far and would take part in the nationals located in Fort Lauderdale. I'll stop there.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, Dick is going to be, he's 90. So he'd be the baby of the age group this year. So that's why I was somewhat disappointed. And I know he was too, that the games were canceled this year. But he wouldn't have any competition. He would have won anyways. But he still would have put it on. And Carl's actually seeing him compete. He definitely goes hard. How about Walt? Do you have any things
Sure.
you do?
Yeah, it's funny. I was kind of thinking, reflecting a little bit on what Mike said. Ironman right now, to look at next year, it's going to be like getting tickets for a U2 concert. The spots are coveted. With COVID, everything's going to be thrown into next year, and those slots are going to go. And so, fortunately, we had some deferrals from this year for a few halves, which were great. Signed up for my first full last evening in Canada, so that's going to be a lot of fun. But I, like Mike said, I think there's, we put the goal out there, right? And in this case, it's kind of a quasi destination race, and and a goal too. And then we sort of work back, right? We work backwards from it. And in that, right, I mean, we still have family goals, we still have work goals, we still have our athletic goals, and then we have to put all of that together, right?
Yeah.
To really get that balance in life and be really happy. So, and one kind of fuels the other, right? I mean, if everything's going, well at work and I can get my training in and things are great at home. And I mean, it's really, really fulfilling. And so it's great to sort of build those goals and work everything, towards it. Yeah. Hello,
Yeah,
Sue.
I'm going to take a minute and introduce Sue Reynolds, who's joining us. Hey, Sue.
Hey, I'm so sorry I'm late. My last meeting went long and it's just been one of those days. But hi, everybody.
Nice.
Hey, no
Hi.
problem. Welcome. So yeah, we were just kind of discussing goals right now. So I'm going to I'll see if Becca wants to go first and then give you some time to think about things. But I was just asking how people set their goals, if you're doing kind of using short-term goals to get to the long-term goals, or what you're doing. So Becca, do you want to jump in there first?
Yeah, so I think like during my session, I probably didn't talk that much about myself as an athlete. I was talking more about my research, and I'll definitely say, my research inspires what I do on more and more. I will say every year it inspires what I do more. And so I think my long-term goal is to identify as an athlete forever, sort of to die as an athlete. But I'm not a very competitive athlete because I'm not very good at anything. I'm good at showing up and participating. And I'm finding, though, that, I'm 43, so I'm almost, qualified. I'm getting there in order to be a senior athlete. But I'm finding that if I show up, a lot of my peers are not showing up. right, to practice. I'm swimming masters and I'm working out during COVID. I'm running hills because my gym is closed and my pool was closed until recently. And so I bought an erg and I put it in my dining room on Friday. So there's a new challenge in my dining room right now, which I'm excited about. But honestly, I think but everything all the decisions I make right now about what I'm willing to do and what I'll do on a day-to-day basis come down to, well, then am I still healthy and engaging in this? And will I be able to do that when I'm 86? Yeah. And that's my long-term goal. So I'm not winning things, but I'm willing to sign up for just about anything because it's compatible with my goal. And also my long-term goal doesn't require me to win anything, just to participate.
That's great.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah, that's perfect. Sue, do you have anything to add now?
Yeah, just in goals, Becca, I love everything that you said. One of my long-term goals too is to be doing this when I'm 90. So I'm 66 now. So hopefully I'll continue to do it. But I really enjoy thinking about goals and kind of studying just the whole idea of goals. I really like outcome goals and process goals. So the outcome goal is just kind of to set the direction that I want to go in. So like, to be able to do a triathlon when I'm 90, or to be able to finish my second half Ironman, or to go back to Worlds, qualify for Worlds again, or whatever. But then that just provides the direction. But then what really, really motivates me is the process goals. So, what do I have to do today in order to do a triathlon when I'm 90? Or what do I have to do today to qualify for Worlds again? So the process goals, really, I'm always looking for, what do I have to do to be better? And then just doing what I have to do every single day in order to move toward that outcome goals. But the outcome goals aren't guaranteed. There's so many things that impact the outcome of a triathlon or any race really. But I can guarantee the process goals. I can guarantee that I'm going to do what I have to do today and what I have to do tomorrow and all that. So yeah, so that's my take on goals.
Okay. Does anybody have, I'll kind of jump, anybody have any questions for anybody else on the panel here? Do people know the other people on the panel? Do I need to go through and take a couple minutes to summarize things, or?
Yeah, if you haven't already, I thought maybe that was the part I was disappointed about missing because I was late. But if you haven't done all that, if you haven't done that already, I'd really appreciate that.
Okay. So I don't know. I'm gonna say a name. I'm gonna have you just kind of wave. So Walt Maxwell. He is a local triathlete and actually someone who did Ironman Chattanooga with me last year. He's done, I don't know, 30 plus marathons. How many Ironman is it now? Seven. Yeah.
Seven falls, yeah.
So he was mile number one. Then we have Becca George. Becca is the one who created the senior athlete fitness exam. She's a physical therapist in North Dakota. So she's tested 4,000 athletes. So Carl, when I get to you, she may have been the one who tested you.
That's likely.
Yes. So yeah, we'll go to Carl next. Carl is in his 70s, and he actually goes to nationals, to senior games, and he's medaled in events. So he said somebody did test him, so I guarantee it was Becca. And then Dr. Rosen, who's not on here, he is 90. He's the local senior games. He still runs and plays tennis 2 days a week. And we just talked about his 10K he ran today. And then Mike Studer, who's on the treadmill walking. He is a physical therapist in Oregon. He is the neuroplasticity expert on this panel, stroke, aging, and speaks all over the place. So as you can tell, he's a high energy guy. He can't sit still. And then Melissa Roberts, she is acting as any moderator for us for any questions if we get any. She's the one that I connected you with for as our TTT president. So that's the panel. Anybody have any questions for anybody else on the panel?
I'm curious with Dr. Rosen, and maybe you've already shared this. I hate being late because you never know what's been said and what hasn't been said. But yeah, for those of us who want to keep doing sports when we're 90, any little quick bits of advice?
Can you hear me, or am I
Yep.
muted?
No, you're there.
I think you just have to be lucky. So many things have to be fortuitous that you're able to keep going. I do share your idea, Sue, about process goals. Certainly, after tennis, which is usually the first thing of any group of activities that I'll do, I want to be sure and walk and run at least 2 miles after the last tennis point, so that I won't ever be tired when I'm playing tennis. And that's purely process. There's no race that I'm getting ready for or anything like that. And it's a lot harder on hot days than it is on a cool day, obviously. But there are going to be bumps in the road. I've had probably an injury at least to keep me out for a month or two, at least once every 5 or 7 years. And in coming back, I'm slower and I'm not as strong. Lately, after the last time where I had heel pain in July, my stride that used to be one of the longest in town, I'm small, but most of my body is legs. And I can now, in the same 40 strides that just a few months ago I was doing like about 60 meters, now I'm doing less than 50 meters. It's easy to tell on a track that you're not getting to the prior landmark, but you just have to roll with the waves. But every injury has left me with being able to compete only for a PR of the post-injury time, because I never get back to the pre-injury time. And you just have to accept that there are stories in other sports and other people. I remember reading, and this was probably in the mid-'60s, Ben Hogan had a terrible car accident, and he had swelling in his legs from a clot in the inferior vena cava, the main vein that takes blood from the legs to the heart. And you'd think that it would be very hard for him to walk around. Despite that, he won the U.S. Open the next year. So there are people who get injured who somehow get back to a huge milestone and their superior skills. But I've never been able to do that, and it doesn't mean that I have to quit. And that's the fortunate thing. I like being active, and I'll probably be active as long as I'm able to be. And I have not had a time where I've been sulking and not able to go out and do something.
Okay, that's great. So I'm going to actually piggyback on that. So, I'm curious how people measure success. So I know when you're younger, everybody wants to win a race, and I'm sure you still always want to win a race now. But if anybody wants to jump in, how do you measure success of an event? Anybody want to take that?
I'll jump in for a second because I was really, I really enjoyed Becca's comments, and I think it really spoke to me as well. It was really about, to Sue's point, part of it's the journey as well. I think you and I, Pete, we've talked about race day is celebration day, right? From taking all that time and the investment, and it's the day of celebration, and we're already there, right? We've already succeeded because we got to the starting line, and so that in some ways is success. very much so forgetting. And the day could go as the day could go. It's just going to unfold in front of you, and we'll take it as it comes, and we'll cross the finish line, and then that's success too. But part of that is really getting there. The journey, right, and as much as the destination, right.
Yeah.
So thank you for that, Becky. It really spoke to me. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
So I'll chime in real quick here. Being kind of a dopamine junkie, quasi-endorphin junkie, I'll tell you, as a 5'9", 150-pound male who was not blessed with a lot of power, I'm an athletic individual in terms of skill, but I'm not, again, born with a lot of physical prowess. So I'll take success any place I can possibly get it. So for me, I set things up in a couple of different ways. I see success as training healthily to get to the event. I see success as finishing the event safely, walking away with some fun memories, either of something that I did, saw, or experienced. Could be a colleague of mine, could be somebody else that was just motivating to me because they're in a wheelchair or with an assistive device and finishing a race. So the fun part of it is there as well. And then after that, I'll look at success being defined only in that fourth period as terms within my own column, if you will. So how did I perform compared to goals that I set? How did I perform year on year or same race course? And then how did I perform against age match colleagues and then against the entire group? Yeah. So really only by the time I get to that fourth point in the column am I looking at my own performance from a metric that day, because it's safe training, safe competition completion, fun experience, and then let's look at the stats after that. So that's me for looking at success.
Yeah, that's excellent. I think a lot of people look the other way around. They start to look and see where they finished, and unfortunately, depending on where they finished, they don't see any of the other stuff. And I think that's your way is much better to look at. It's healthier, I think.
It works for me.
That was
I'm smaller than you, and running was the first thing I found where I wasn't trying to get a rebound from somebody a foot taller or having overheads thrust down on my side of the net.
Yeah.
And it really was a joy. For me, one of the successes, I really appreciated the last mile of each marathon. And I only ran 7 of them, so it's not like I was running a marathon once a month or anything. But I knew that was going to be a rare and unusual event for me, and I wanted to really appreciate it as it happened. The being of the last 100 yards or so in a marathon was something that I knew was a rare and enjoyable accomplishment. But it was the process of doing it that led up to that.
That's good. Sue, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, when I first started triathlon, when I started, I was obese. I lost 200 pounds. So my first triathlon.
Oh, my.
Yeah. So
You've got to listen to her episode.
You do. I highly recommend it.
So I started at 335 pounds and I came in dead last in every single race. And I really had to struggle with, what is success for me if I'm coming in dead last out of everybody, race after race after race. And I think, Mike, I kind of did what you talked about too. When I first started out, I thought, I'll look at my percentile rank, and I was at the very last percentile rank. And then I thought, well, can I move up 1 percentile rank and then a 2nd percentile rank?
Sure.
And, I'm finally up to now where I'm, doing well. But that was huge. And then the other thing that I developed back then that I've still carried through is that I think the biggest success is crossing the start line. That just, for me, that took then and now it takes courage and grit to face the challenge. And I've always been much prouder of getting across the start line than I am to get across the finish line, no matter where I finish in the race now. So, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, that's huge. I think so many people don't even get into the race. I think so. You're right. I think getting to the start line is such a huge, amazing what will happen when you actually enter the race. I don't care what that is. It doesn't have to be a true event, just doing something. Let's see. Carl, do you have anything you want to add to that or?
Well, I can say a lot. Do you have a specific issue? Well, I mean, I like to compete. And when I found out I couldn't run anymore, or I thought I wasn't going to be able to run anymore, that's when I started taking up swimming and swimming competitively. Of course, when you learn to swim at 69, you're never going to be at the top. But it's fun. I enjoy the competition.
Yeah.
That's not like to beat people, I guess, because you're always running against yourself.
Yeah.
Not anybody else, really. So
yeah,
always competing with myself to get better. I may never run a 6-minute mile again, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to try to.
One of the things I feel like, and it sounds like you all are involved in some way or another with either yourselves or with others in endurance sports. And one of the things I think is so nice about endurance sports is that we do compete by age groups. And, so I'm thinking, I can't wait till I'm 90 and I'm competing in the 90 to 94 age group.
Right.
That's going to
You'd
be
be on
well.
a relay team.
Yeah.
It's pretty thin.
It's pretty thin.
Well, I talk to so many senior athletes, and I feel like it's the ones that I see as so successful are just having so much fun, and they're prepared for what they came to do. And right, if it's just finishing their race, or if it's making their own PR, or if it's beating this one other person that they're always close to in the race, or something like that, or whatever it might be. But usually by the time I see athletes, well, and it's at various stages throughout the games, they're just so happy to be there and to be able to be there. And they know that they've overcome things, that, like you said, Dr. Rosen, they're lucky that they can be there. They're fortunate. And some of their fortune comes from hard work and persistence and showing up. And there's a bit of luck, right, on top of that they haven't fallen to some terrible calamity or illness. But I think a lot of that, they're creating their own luck just by being optimistic that they can do it. And I mean, even look at it, I'm going to go back to Dr. Rosen, where he says, well, I have to run certain parts, and then I have to take a break because I get short of breath, but you keep doing it. And that's not luck, right? That's persistence. There's a lot of brilliance there.
Yeah. Carl, I think you had mentioned something too. When you go to nationals, it's basically you get to know everybody in your age group. And so
we all know each other. It's really great. It's like a community. And when we are not running, we're the best of friends. When we're running, all right. It's very
Game on.
We're running, but it's great. I mean, we really like each other too, for the most part.
Yeah. Becca touched on something too that, and Sue as well. It's, Sue, I'm one of the last ones out of the water. Okay. I have no problem finding my bike in transition, period. It's that one over there. Yeah. But what excites me sometimes, it's humbling, but exciting at the same time, is when I'm riding up finally on somebody who's 77 years old, who just kicked my ass in the swim, right? And who's putting it down out there, and who's, and this isn't necessarily a mile 1 either. This could be a mile 30, and in a long, in long course events. And that's exciting to me to say, look at this guy, and, again, hoping that it's me, right? Someday soon, right? Someday as well. So yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, it's exciting.
It's one other thing on this. I think it's funny when I talk to younger triathletes, because they all assume that once you get older, there's not the competitiveness of it that we all get seniors, and then we become sweet. And oh my gosh, I think about, you mentioned swimming. You know, I'm starting to swim with all these 65 to 69-year-olds. I mean, it's cutthroat. We're like swimming over the top of each other, and you know, so it's just as competitive. So
That's good.
yeah,
That's
it's
funny.
crazy.
Melissa, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
The first one that Joe wants to ask is, who are your heroes, or how do you find your source for inspiration?
Anybody want to take that one?
Well,
Inspiration?
I can say one thing, like honestly, and I'm not competing in the games, but I swim masters, I do triathlons, I've done a few marathons, but my inspiration is for sure just seeing everyone out there competing, seeing other people being able to and overcoming so many different things to be able to compete. So my inspiration is seeing people go ahead of me and hoping that I can do that as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in there on that. So, you know, basically the whole reason we're actually doing this podcast is because, like I said, I reached out to Charlie Plascon, the 77-year-old visually impaired triathlete, and it's funny. About 2 hours ago, he wasn't able to make it because he's with family, but he reached out to me just to wish everybody good luck today, and he was sorry he wasn't part of this live stream. But just, you know, hearing his story and talking about what he has overcome in his life, it's pretty amazing. And for me, anybody who's kind of overcome stuff, you know, even Carl's had some health issues that he's overcome and still out there running. And I love hearing. My best part of senior games, I'm going to be honest, I'll tell you that is you, Dr. Dick Rosen. I love going to senior games to see you run around that track, and it's just amazing. Everybody needs to see these stories, and they need to hear them, because I think there's too many excuses out there why they can't do something. And it's not somebody on a basketball court or a baseball or football. It's the senior games, I think, and seeing what these athletes can do is just incredible. Well,
I was going to say, Dr. Rosen. Yeah, Dr. Rosen, I live near you, and I watch you. I see you. I see the hat, right? And much respect, and I look forward to it. It inspires me. And
yeah, call me Dick. This doctor
okay.
business is
Okay.
old. I wear a floppy hat, as you probably noticed, rather than the baseball cap that I wore for the first 80 years of my life. I've had a couple of skin cancers of my ear, which wouldn't have happened if I had floppy hats on before.
Right.
And I use sunscreen, which I never did earlier. And those are recommendations that I think should be generalized.
Right.
Yep. Okay. Anybody else?
So I've been a PT for 30 years, and I'm inspired by the people that have had things, abilities of all levels taken away from them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remain motivated and inspired by their effort to be able to accomplish the act of walking independently, and don't take for granted what I've got. And so I remain primarily, but multifactorially, family, faith, and otherwise also inspired. That's probably a primary inspiration that I've had, though, is just coming from the patients that I get the opportunity to help.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
good.
I was going to kind of go in the same direction. Before I do races, I write the names of people who inspire me on the palm of my hand, and just so I can remember them when things get tough. But it's usually the names of people who have chronic illnesses. And then I try to remember during the race that, you know, the pain that I brought on to myself by choosing to do this, and will be over at the end of the race, but they have to deal with chronic pain forever. And, you know, and often do so with such grace. And I
Yeah.
just take a lot of courage from that. And I'm really also taken by the para triathletes who are, doing triathlon, missing a limb or blind or whatever. And oh my gosh, to think about that extra challenge that they have in addition to just how hard a triathlon is, it just inspires me to the nth degree.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody who's on the Weathered Athlete podcast group, here's a plug. I posted a video today of an athlete changing a tire with one arm.
Yes.
Actually didn't have a hand, and it's incredible to watch that video and watch him do the whole thing. Take the tire off, put the new tire on, inflate it. It's so impressive, and it just shows me again that there's so many things that people can do. And I think I wrote that I can't needs to be removed from the dictionary. We should never say that, because you can always do something. The people, it's amazing what they can get done. Melissa, any other questions?
Yeah, there's one for Mike. When you were talking about how you measure your success and you were talking your process, it was asked, is this something you developed or were you just born that way? Because sometimes we have a hard time measuring our own success as being content, happy, satisfied. So
Yeah. I come from a long line of people that are probably similarly described as me, not particularly gifted, but willing to work very hard. So getting that thrill from training, from working hard, whether it means, repairing the entire fence on our property and, taking that one stretch at a time, or, being able to get all of your animals vaccinated. I mean, it's a process, just like training is. And if you can't tell, I grew up on a very large farm. That's where my analogies come from. And so work ethic was born into me. Trained naturally into me. And so that's why, leading up to an event, I'm pleased with getting the process done. And then I can put the metrics of it later. How many cattle were you able to sell? Did you find all of them? What price did they go for? Those types of things. Some of those things are out of your control, but you do everything you can to lead up to it, whether it's competitive athletics, being an entrepreneur, or being a farmer. You control what you can control.
Yeah, that's great. Becca, so we're at 8:50 now. I'm going to ask Becca or Mike if you guys want to jump in and say anything, just what you've seen as far as research, as far as the aging athletes, or any comments you want to kind of tie in.
You first, Becca.
Oh, recent research on aging athletes. If I could say one thing that everybody would maybe appreciate or love about aging athletes is that we're just seeing function, like physical function, mirror adults that are probably 20 years younger than your biological age. That's probably my favorite thing that I'm finding in my own research and that runs parallel in other research that I see. So, and that's not, that doesn't mean that you're winning. Right? I don't study just people that win. I study people that just do this after age 50. And to be able to do that, you're going to function at a physical age that's younger than your biological age. And I love that.
Yeah, that's great. I'll tag on to that and just say that as I've been studying more, I've come to understand that what we used to attribute as obligatory losses that will occur with aging, we may have overestimated what a person will, as a matter of fact, lose as a function of aging. And we understand that some of that now, maybe as much as 50% in endurance. We don't know that to be the case in strength yet, but in endurance, as much as 50% of the expected losses are use-dependent losses. So I'm getting older. I don't think I will be able to. I should not do. And therefore, the inactivity-based losses are actually equal with the physiologic timed aging losses, if that's clear.
Yeah, I think we talked about it in our episode that we did. It's just amazing that I think a lot of those losses, people just stop doing things. And so typically, I think the it was it 1% per year or 10% per decade is what we should see, and we end up seeing 10 times that, just from people not being active. So
Right.
I think everybody on this panel is, no matter what your age is a good example of why you need to continue. And if we just look at what Dick's doing every single day, there's something being done every single day, which is so important.
Yeah.
Melissa,
Incidentally, there are plenty of studies. I've got some friends with Parkinson's, and they are as active as possible, and they're convinced that being active is retarding the progression of their disease that's going to do them in, but it slows the progression a great deal. And we all know that the major causes of death for us are retarded by activity, and that includes heart disease, particularly, and heart failure. Even people with heart failure are recommended to do something as best they possibly can in terms of daily exercise.
Yeah, I agree. That's excellent. Sue, did you have something to jump in?
Yeah, I just have a question for Beck and Mike, or really anyone. I was reading an article today about doping in the amateur athlete community. And I was really surprised that it said that there's a very high, not a high percentage, but a surprisingly high percentage of seniors, amateur athletes that are doping. And the article said that their theory was that athletes who had been outstanding athletes in their youth, as they're getting older and they're losing their ability to compete, and that they, there's so much, they feel so much internal pressure to perform, that they go to illegal means to do so. I was just wondering if you wanted to comment on that, or if you had any thoughts, or.
Mike?
Well, there's a temptation, and it sounds crazy, but I watched the Olympic marathon trials in February, and they mentioned the shoes with the carbon fiber plate.
Yeah.
And you can picture me, as slow as I am, thinking that, would that help me? And I have a granddaughter that lives with her boyfriend, and he's faster than she is. And I asked her if I could buy a pair of shoes for her with a carbon fiber plate. And she said, no, it wouldn't help me. That's only for elite runners. And I read the reviews in the Nike website, and there were slow runners there who said they were running them a minute per mile faster. So darned if I didn't buy a pair, and I ran a clinical trial using my old shoes for 100 meters, which I can run without walking, and also the fast shoes. And there were 7 comparisons, 5 of which the faster shoes were faster. 1 they were tied, and 1 the older shoes were faster. Towards the end of that time, I had heel pain, and I thought it might have been due to wearing those fast, very flimsy shoes. I don't know if you've seen them, but people say that they only last for about 250 miles. And if you run, you usually get much more miles than that from a pair of shoes. So I can say that there is a temptation, no matter how old and slow you are, if there's a way to find a gimmick that might make you faster, you might try it. I've never tried any medication, and I wouldn't think of doing anything like that. And I don't think that anybody I knew was ever tempted for doing anything like that.
Yeah, I'm going to jump there and say, Mike, that's a glimpse in 39 years from now. That's you at 89 doing research.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm already kind of looking aside, because that's almost all I run in is a carbon fiber shoe right now. So I guess, to your point, Sue, I'm already doping. I don't have any evidence on chemical doping whatsoever, and I'm surprised to hear of its prevalence, so I can't answer better than I have.
Yeah, I wish, well, I'm glad maybe I don't know about it. I don't know about it in senior games, but I don't, to my knowledge, we don't look for it.
Yeah.
Well, they do give drug tests whenever you win an event in the senior games.
Oh, do they?
Oh yeah,
Did they really?
they do.
Okay, then they do look for it.
Yep.
I didn't
Wow.
know that.
Carl, is this at nationals? You're talking nationals?
Yes, this is nationals. They don't do it in state or local, of course.
Wow. So is it just for the gold medalist ones that they do it, or they do it for all three?
Gold medalist and also randomly, they'll
Okay.
pick somebody out.
Well, that's good. That's interesting to know.
They
But I've heard the
tested-
same thing that you were just saying, that it's really prevalent among the seniors event.
Yeah.
Wow.
My new goal is to get drug tested because I did something so well. It's just,
And
one of
say-
those little goals that I'll have.
Well, caffeine has been shown to help. I mean,
Yeah.
it used to be considered an illegal drug, but not anymore. It's legal now, and it does help.
We're getting close to 9, but Melissa, do you have any other questions? That's good.
Can I just share one
Yep.
quick anecdote? Okay, in the national championship or in the national senior games in Minnesota, there was a guy there. He was 102 years old, and he was competing in every event that he could compete in, which were mostly throwing events. But he was 102, and he had a T-shirt on that said, "Oh, to be 100 again." I want to be like that.
I love it. I love it. Anybody have anything else you want to add?
Well, I bought a car when I was 80, and I was sure that was going to be my last car. It didn't have its get up and go when I bought a new car last month. And this time I am sure it's going to be my last car.
You never know.
Yeah.
Hey, I've
Okay.
got a last comment before I sign off. Rate and review and share the podcast. Pete's doing a great job. Let's not keep it a secret, folks.
I
Absolutely.
appreciate
And thank you, Pete. I enjoyed the interview and this hour a great deal.
I appreciate it. So Mike basically said it. So yeah, please share this with everyone. The only way we're going to get there, we're at 750 downloads right now. And my goal, so we're going to talk about goals. October 1st was to have 1,000. So we got 250. We need to spread this thing. So we got a little bit to go. I don't think I'll make it, but guess what? I want to be as close as I can. And coming up, I've already done 4 of the next 10 interviews, and I got some really good interviews coming up. I will say, so you just got to stay tuned. I'm not gonna break it in, but if you join the Weathered Athlete Podcast group page, I will be posting stuff on there and kind of giving updates. And I cannot thank you all enough for doing this. Didn't know how it was going to turn out, but it's fantastic. I love every bit of it, and thank you so much.
Thank
Okay.
you all.
It's fun.
Thank you.
Thanks for including me.
Good night.
Thank you, guys.
Good night. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Walt, if you see me, say hello. So